All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this home energy assessment webinar. On this webinar, we'll be talking about the benefits of getting a home energy assessment and what that assessment looks for, and what it'll tell you about how to make your home more energy efficient, comfortable, and even help you maybe save some money on your utility bills. Furthermore, you will find out how to get an energy assessment for your home for free by just filling out an online form. We'll be hearing from our guest speaker tonight, Jay Best of Green Team LI, and a testimonial from an East Hampton resident who has had a home energy assessment. And we'll end with a Q&A session and some closing remarks. So a few housekeeping items before we get into the presentation. During the Q&A session, we will start with questions that were submitted with registration, but there will also be the opportunity to submit questions during the webinar as well. Please submit questions via that Q&A button at the bottom of your webinar window. You may need to hover your mouse over the window for that toolbar to appear. All questions submitted during the webinar will be answered publicly on camera, so we're not going to be answering any questions in that text box. And we'll do our best to answer all questions tonight. Any that we cannot get to will be posted with answers on the energized.org website. This webinar is also being recorded and will air live on LTV, channel 22, and be made available on video on demand at a later date. These details will also be up on the energized.org webpage as soon as possible. So my name is Lauren Steinberg. I'm a senior environmental analyst for the town's Department of Natural Resource. My co-host on this webinar is Gordian Rocky, the executive director of Renewable Energy Long Island and energy sustainability consultant to the town. So to provide a little bit of background, the town of East Hampton has a long history of promoting energy sustainability. East Hampton is both a state designated climate smart and clean energy community and was the first municipality in New York to adopt a goal to meet the equivalent of 100% annual community-wide energy consumption, such as electricity, heating, and transportation with renewable energy sources by 2030. East Hampton also facilitated the development of the first megawatt scale solar farm on the South Fork. The 1.1 megawatt DC Acabonic solar farm in Springs was completed in 2019 and generates enough clean, renewable electricity to power approximately 136 homes annually. The town's Energize East Hampton initiative is a resource for residents and local business owners to connect with programs that offer energy and money-saving opportunities. Energize also includes Solarize East Hampton campaign, where residents and business owners can save on solar installations by the town's pre-screened designated local installer. And Energize East Hampton also includes a partnership with the Long Island Green Homes Program, a nonprofit collaborative which coordinates the free home energy assessments for residents, which are the topic of this webinar tonight. To sign up for a free home energy assessment or for more information about any of the other offerings from Energize East Hampton, visit energized.org, select the topic you're interested in, and choose the offerings you want on the sign up form. And we'll go over these steps again in more detail at the end of the webinar. So let's get into the topic this evening, which is a home energy assessment, also known as a home energy audit. The first question you might be asking is, why should I get an energy assessment for my home? What are the benefits? And our guest speaker will be getting into this in much greater detail. But to set the stage, a home energy assessment has many benefits, such as identifying areas of your home where there may be drafts or air leaks. These areas are sources of energy waste because the infiltration of cold air in the winter or leakage in the summer can make your heating and air conditioning systems have to work harder to keep your home at a comfortable temperature, which wastes energy and results in higher utility bills for the homeowner. A home energy assessment can also check for things like carbon monoxide leaks, and a report after the assessment can help homeowners plan for improvements to make their home more energy efficient and comfortable and find financial assistance opportunities for making those improvements. So now I'm going to turn it over to my co-moderator, Gordian, who's going to talk about the importance of improving the energy efficiency of our homes on a broader scope.
Thank you, Lauren. And, as somebody who lives in a very energy efficient and passive solar house, I can attest to the fact that all the things Lauren just mentioned are true, but there's something else that I'd like to add, which is that, when my wife and I decided to build a home and build it to the strictest energy efficiency standards and heat it with the sun and power it by the sun, we knew about all of this and thought this is all good stuff and we're going to save a lot of money and so forth. But what it really also meant is that we feel good about the place we live in because we feel we're doing the right thing for the environment and for the planet. So it has monetary benefits, but it has many other very important benefits as well. So I want to talk about the bigger picture. So the policy-wise, why this is also an important thing to do. And let me see the next bullet, Lauren. The bigger picture, of course, is what the state of New York is doing. Can you give it another click?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delay.
All right. Anyhow, I'll there we go. So the state has passed a climate law called the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, which is the leading climate legislation in the country. It puts us at the very forefront of providing climate solutions. And next bullet, please. It mandates essentially that we'll be doing what scientists have been telling us for many, many years, if not decades, namely that we need to drastically reduce carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions. This law mandates a minimum of 85% emission reductions by the year 2050 with an interim goal by 2030 to reduce emissions 40%. That's a tall order. It's absolutely necessary, just what the doctor ordered. And we will have to do it. It includes sub-goals like 100% zero carbon electricity mandate by the year 2040, an interim goal of 70% renewable electricity by 2030. And this is important in this context, it requires that we implement some significant savings in the energy demand in buildings by 2025, very soon. Since you probably don't know what 185 tera BTUs are, I broke it down in a percentage. It means essentially that by 2050, we'll have to have reduced energy demand in buildings by 65%, and by 2030 as an interim by 24%. So by getting a home energy audit and doing some of the recommendations that come out of that audit, you not only save money in your home, make your home more comfortable and all of those good things, and you not only feel good about it, but you also help us address climate change at a local level, the state level, and the global level. This is what we have to do and what we have to do globally. So it's also important to note that reducing energy demand in buildings through energy efficiency improvement makes it easier to meet our renewable energy and emission reduction mandates. All right, and with that, to the next slide, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker. And our guest speaker is Jay Best. I've known Jay for quite some time and have always been very impressed with his work. And we're thrilled to have him speak today. So Jay Best is founder and CEO of Green Team Long Island. That's a full-service home efficiency company specializing in whole home solutions. Green Team Long Island is a two-time National Home Performance Contractor of the Year award recipient. The company's focus is making customers' homes more comfortable, safer, and more energy efficient. The process starts, he says, with the home energy audit to identify opportunities in the home for improvements that can range from weatherization to updated heating and cooling systems to solar energy. The Green Team specialists also help the homeowner to take advantage of the full range of rebate and incentive programs that can make getting the work done much more affordable. In addition to a degree in chemistry from MIT and a master's in chemical engineering from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, Jay holds several Building Performance Institute certifications, including building analyst, shell specialist, heating, AC, and heat pump and multifamily. And he is a LEED accredited professional. So Jay is definitely qualified to speak in this webinar. And by the way, Jay also serves as vice president of the New York State Building Performance Contractors Association. So Jay, over to you. Take it away.
All right, Gordian, thank you very much. And Lauren, thank you for putting this on. We're honored to be here today and very much looking forward to continuing to work with East Hampton and all of Long Island to meet these very ambitious energy efficiency goals. There's quite a lot to be done. And, we have a fairly old housing stock on Long Island and many beautiful houses, but they need a lot of updates. And so we got to bring them into the 21st century here. All right, you want to next slide? Okay, so just a touch about Green Team Long Island. We have been honored the last couple of years to have been Contractor of the Year for 2020 and again in 2021. We work in a variety of different New York State and Long Island programs, and really, these programs aren't easy, I got to tell you, but we do that to be able to bring Long Islanders kind of the best of what the utilities in New York State have to offer, really to make sure that these programs are affordable. There's a tremendous amount of work that can be done, and the way New York State and the utilities have structured it, is to make it really as affordable as possible. Next slide. So just a little sort of touching, a lot of times people are, they want to be green. So what about solar? And our view is that we really want to start with efficiency. We want to reduce the overall load. We want to reduce the amount of wasted energy. And there's a lot of benefits that go to that. But, our focus initially is, let's make the house better so that no matter how you heat it, it's going to need less energy. And there's some benefits there that, it's also going to make your home more comfortable. As we go through, you'll see there's a lot of times we'll identify safety issues that may come up in the home. And, if you have a good handle and a good plan for making your home efficient, then let's talk about renewables. We're big advocates for solar on Long Island. We're very excited, and Gordian's been instrumental on, wind coming as a real generation, but for our building stock, let's make it efficient first, and then solar, when practical. And then from there, let's, we work with people like Gordian to make the grid greener. And that's an important step. And we've tried to pull that together, and really it's come together nicely in the last 2 to 3 years, where we're able to offer really comprehensive solutions that include efficiency, clean electrification, clean heat, and solar and renewables. Next slide. Okay, so some of the benefits, higher efficiency is savings. You can think of, wasted energy is literally wasted money. So let's stop wasting money. Being more efficient is going to make, if your home is losing less heat, it's going to be more comfortable. It's going to be warmer in the wintertime. It's going to be cooler in the summer. We're going to need less fossil fuels. There's a number of safety issues around fossil fuels. They're, not only carbon monoxide, but there's fire hazards, gas explosion hazards that come up. So if we can reduce and even eliminate the use of fossil fuels in your home, it's going to be healthier and safer. And as we're dealing with some of these things, we're also addressing sometimes moisture issues. And lastly, not to be lost in all of this, is that a home that uses less energy, that can perhaps generate its own energy, is going to be worth more. It's going to have more value when you go to resell it and get your money back, at some point down the road. Next slide. Okay, so a lot of what we do is sort of wrapped up in something called home performance. And home performance is really, it's a philosophy based on some physics of heat movement, looking at certain health and safety principles, but it really comes down to kind of looking at the house as a system. And so, we want the house to hold the heat in. That has to be done in a safe way. We are concerned about things like ventilation. We want to reduce your bills, but we don't want to inadvertently create other problems. So, and we want, so we're going to look at health and safety issues. We're going to look at indoor air quality along the way as well. And lastly, if we can lower the amount you pay, to pay to heat and cool your home, that's going to be a benefit to you as well and help make this more affordable. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to get more into the overall assessment, but we're going to look at things like insulation, air leaks, drafts. We're going to look at heating and hot water equipment for both safety and for efficiency. We're going to look at air conditioning efficiency. We're going to look at the distribution system, or typically the ductwork that's that's sending that heat or cool around your home. Part of the safety checks involve checking carbon monoxide levels if you have combustion equipment in your home. We may look at, we're going to be poking our heads in, and if there's moisture issues that may be there, and sometimes in older homes there'll also be asbestos. We don't see quite as much of that in the Hamptons, but for a lot of our work in Nassau County and Queens and Brooklyn, even asbestos becomes a big issue, and that's something that has long-term implications. And coming out of the assessment, then there'll be some recommendations that come out of that. If there are health and safety issues that are potential issues, we'll let you know about those. And then a big part of what we do is around program eligibility. There are these programs that New York State offers, that the utilities offer, that are incentives to help make this work more affordable. And the utilities, they have their own goals for reducing the use of fossil fuels, and so they want people to participate in this program, and they back that up with money. And it's not necessarily, I'm not here to say that utilities are altruistic, but the Department of Public Service and New York State have structured things so that the utilities really need to meet certain goals in order to continue their operation, and that's done through rate cases and things like that. And part of all of that then is what is this going to look like for you in the long term? You may spend some money now to save money. Is that worthwhile? So we do a little bit of financial modeling to show you, the funds that may be saved and how these benefits might help you financially and make this work for you. Not that that's the only consideration, but if it's not affordable, it generally is not going to happen. Next slide. Okay, so what is it? What is the assessment, and what are we talking about here? So typically, the initial assessment is going to take 60 to 90 minutes in your home. We're going to do some testing. A big part of it is air leakage testing. That's going to be done typically with an infrared camera and ideally a blower door test. I will say that for the last 18 months or so, blower tests have been mostly on hiatus due to COVID concerns of just, we don't want to be moving around too much air. That's starting to ease up a little bit, and hopefully we'll get back to being able to do blower door at every home. But the most important thing is really that, that trained professional being able to look for the right things in your home. And, once we were able to kind of see and show you, it's going to make sense whether there's a blower door or not. But the infrared camera is also very helpful, as we get into the, colder weather, that really becomes, very illustrative, where we can show you areas where, literally the cold is kind of seeping into your home, or maybe more accurately, the heat is escaping. And, that's very helpful. Most of us heat and cool our home with combustion, some type of combustion, whether it be a boiler, that's either oil or gas powered, Some of us have furnaces, but almost always, unless you have, a very new system, maybe Gordian has some kind of heat pump, maybe some people have a geothermal type system. Most of us are going to have, some kind of combustion that heats our home. And there are some very real, things that we want to be just making sure of, especially as we go to tighten your home up. We want to make sure that it's not producing carbon monoxide. We want to make sure that your equipment's properly drafting, things like that. I will say that the typical home energy audit has quite a bit of focus on the envelope. So, we're looking at really the walls, the attic, what we call kind of the shell of the building. And that's to tighten that up and make it, need less energy to stay warm or stay cool as the seasons vary. And, and what I mean by provide science-based recommendations is, really kind of a look at, what are the heat loss characteristics of your home, and how can it improving your building impact you both from a comfort standpoint and a monetary standpoint. Next slide. Okay, so on Long Island, in Suffolk County anyway, energy assessors are actually licensed by Suffolk County. It's typically we're looking to, most of the companies will have a BPI accreditation, that's Building Performance Institute. Typically, these are, the contractors will be licensed as home improvement contractors, so they'll be licensed and insured. And the last is that contractors are typically going to work within the PSEG program, and probably also the NYSERDA program. NYSERDA is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, and they have oversight over a great deal of these types of programs statewide, and PSEG runs the program here in Nassau and Suffolk. So those, most contractors who participate will be in one or both of those programs. Next slide. All right, give a little video.
I'm Lindsay St. Lucia. I live in North Charlotte, New York, and I am having a comprehensive home energy assessment done on my home. In my house, I have a problem with my upstairs. It's cold up there during winter and hot during summer. We have to use fans and space heaters to keep the temperature regulated.
A comprehensive home energy assessment is a top-to-bottom analysis of your home's energy efficiency. The assessment considers your whole house, showing how different elements work together as a system. It's a great way to learn how you can make your home more comfortable and save money on your energy bills. Use a participating BPI-accredited Home Performance with Energy Star contractor, and the home assessment is free for most New Yorkers. Through the Assisted Home Performance with Energy Star program, low to moderate income households can qualify for a grant to pay for half the cost of energy efficiency improvements.
Well, with the comprehensive home energy assessment, there's a series of steps that we follow. First is the customer interview. That's key to everything. We try to get some insight from the customer's perspective on issues they could be having in the home. The next step is taking a tour of the house with the customer. I get a view of what they see every day. Then we move on to the visual exam. Visual exam is where I'm now familiar with the home. After the visual exam, then I actually start the testing of the house. Let's take a look.
The testing portion of the home assessment begins with a series of health and safety tests. Your technician will make sure your equipment is working properly, with no gas leaks or other potential dangers. Then, your technician will analyze your home's exterior insulation, in some cases using a special camera that shows the temperature of your walls. Next comes the blower door test, which measures the air leaking from your home. Your technician may use a smoke pencil to find the leakiest spots.
The last step is the report. It gives the customer immediate feedback of where their house stands, areas to improve, also includes prices on any recommendations that we did make for the customer. In Lindsay's house, one of the big culprits that I found was her attic insulation. If you do not have a good barrier preventing the hot air from rising up into your attic and out of your home, you're going to notice a significant change in temperature upstairs.
Andrew recommended that I add insulation to my attic and have some air leaks in my attic and exterior walls sealed. He also suggested some other ways I can save energy at home.
So one recommendation I have for Lindsay is to move her thermostat to a more centralized location to help even out the swing of temperatures from the upstairs to downstairs. She could also improve in the equipment section. High efficiency furnaces, tankless, high efficiency water heaters, they're always a good investment.
After my assessment and now that I've gotten my my report, I actually have a roadmap to move forward now and make changes to my home. So I understand what the priorities have to be for right now and those things that can wait for later. I'm the third person on my street to have a home energy assessment done on my house. I live in a big development, so it's nice to be part of a growing community here. People are trying to make an effort to reduce their energy consumption. So it makes me feel good to be part of that.
All right, thank you. So as that video kind of showed, there's some common types of issues. This diagram is produced by EPA, and it's kind of illustrative of some of the typical things that are going to come up. So the kind of red arrows that are up near the top of the house, those sort of illustrate areas where there's air leakage. And if you think about your house a little bit like a hot air balloon on a cold day, there's warm air inside your home, and that air is going to be buoyant relative to the colder outside air, and it's going to look for places where it can leak up, leak out. And so that might be around where duct work is coming through. It might be where high hats are. Even there's penetrations at the tops of your walls that go into the attic, and all of these contribute to air leakage. And so we want to identify the locations of things like that. Also, inadequate insulation. Until many of our homes were built when there was essentially no energy code, meaning that there might have been very little insulation at the time they were built. I know my house had was built in 1965. There was really just a tiny piece of insulation that was inside the walls. That's kind of fallen down. It really completely inadequate. Now we're looking for maybe close to a foot or more of insulation up in the attic. For a long time, if you had 3 or 4 inches, that was considered adequate. And that was at a time when oil was very cheap, much less than $1 a gallon. So we've really the world has changed a lot since then. We certainly have a better awareness, and we would like to live in more comfortable homes, and so there's a lot we can do to fix those issues. The kind of red arrows at the top of this picture illustrate where air leaks out, and when air leaks out, and in this case, sort of showing going into an attic, and most of us have vented attics, and then air is going to need to replace that air that leaks out. So cold air is going to leak in, maybe around the perimeter of the foundation, where there's penetrations. Think, how many different cable penetrations and electrical penetrations and pipe penetrations that go, out through your foundation, through the sides of your home. There's a lot of different places where, where air can leak into and out of your home. We also, many of our homes were built by builders who really had, they were looking to build, 3 bedrooms and have a nice kitchen. And they knew that as long as there was a new heating system, that people really weren't going to care whether it was an 80% furnace or an 85% furnace. And, the builder was looking to keep their costs, for building down. They really didn't care how much it was going to cost to heat or cool the home over the long period of time. So we've got a lot of inefficient heating and cooling equipment. It was inefficient when it was installed, and now it's maybe 20 or 30 years since it was installed. So you can imagine, how it would rate now to today's modern equipment. And then finally, we're going to look at things like, electrical load. We're going to look, it's for a long time, and we still change out a lot of light bulbs, but for years and years, we had incandescent lights, and LEDs were still kind of a novelty and very expensive. And then we went to compact fluorescent bulbs, and those took time to warm up, and they're not nearly as efficient as the LEDs. So there's there's still a lot of improvements that can be made for a lot of people's lighting. There's some older appliances, especially refrigerators, are going to be very inefficient. So there's going to be some opportunity there. Then lastly, there's there are things that people are just unaware of, and some of it's the obvious. Yell at my kids to turn off the lights. But now we can actually have lights that if there's nobody in the room for a while, they turn themselves off. And so we don't have to worry as much about that. I've got a Nest thermostat that will, if nobody's in the house for a while, it will turn the temperature down a little bit, because it doesn't need to be quite as warm as if there's lots of people in the house. So, we've got some technology solutions that can, help to mitigate, our worst tendencies as occupants. Next slide. So, in terms of air leakage, there's there's a few places where infiltration tends to happen, and that kind of pie chart on the left there shows you some examples of where where there tend to be leakage. Floors, walls, ceilings, those make up the biggest bulk. That's kind of the biggest area. But there's other things. You see the green area. Plumbing penetrations is about 13% of the air leakage that happens in most homes. Fireplaces, 14%. Round doors and windows are about 10% each. Where your ductwork comes together, those are. So there's a number of different places that we're concerned about air leakage in your home. And then we want to consider how heat's going to move. Heat's going to move. We like to say that heat rises. It's really not heat that rises, but it's hot air. But heat's going to move from areas where there's more heat to less heat. And so, if I have, a warm space, but I have an uninsulated crawl space, I'm going to have heat moves from that warm area through the floor, and my floor is going to feel really cold and uncomfortable. And we go into a lot of houses where, maybe there was a crawl space that was insulated years ago, and that insulation is no longer working well. And now, you can't walk in their kitchen in the wintertime without shoes on. So the floors have just become so cold that it's really uncomfortable during certain times of the year. And so there's, and then there's also usually unintended, but voids that might be in the home's construction. And so sometimes, there's places where, cold air will infiltrate a home in ways that were not fully expected. Next slide. All right. So there's a couple of things we use, and probably the biggest thing, which is not actually listed here, but is the expertise of the energy auditor. Most energy auditors who've been in the business for a while have literally seen hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of homes. And so we get a real understanding of the building stock in a particular area. There's communities on Long Island where we've done, hundreds of energy audits within, a single community. So we get very familiar with the issues that show up in the housing stock. And then these tools that are listed here, an infrared camera and a blower door test, these are the best use of these is really to demonstrate for our homeowners. So we haven't been able to do very many blower doors in the last year and a half. And I'll tell you, it hasn't impacted our finding where the energy problems are, but it has impacted our ability to show people where the problems are. It's such a good tool that when we start up a blower door, it will sort of exacerbate all the leaks we know exist, high hats and around doors and windows, and really let people kind of see and feel it. And the same thing with the infrared camera. There's nothing like seeing, a blue spot next to your yellow spot. And typically with the infrared camera, a color temperature is mapped to actual temperature. So if something's red, it's warmer. If something's blue, it's colder. And so, like on that sort of example picture on the left there, areas that are blue are cooler areas on the home, and then you see some walls that are obviously leaking heat into into probably the night air in that particular picture. So these are tools that we can bring. We need for the infrared camera, we need a little bit of temperature differential, and the blower door, we just need we need COVID to go away, but we're working on that. Next slide. So there's a few areas that are kind of very typical, and the picture that you see there on the left is someone applying some spray foam, and you can see on the right there's some pictures of where some foam has been applied to different cracks, and every one of those little seams is a place. This would be up in the attic, looking down at the floor of the attic, and the insulation's pulled back, and that foam caulking is sealing different joints and penetrations and eliminating air leaking up into the attic in this particular case. And there's typically leaks, there's a whole list of places there. Probably the most surprising are you don't realize how many electrical penetrations come up through, or that there's the top plates, and on both sides of each top plate at the tops of walls, there's typically air leakage that goes on, and there's quite a lot of it. Next slide. All right. One of the big ones, especially if you have an air conditioner system or a furnace that provides heat through typically in some unconditioned space that might be air conditioning work in an attic, or maybe there's a furnace that's going through a basement area, is duct leakage. And keep in mind, for many years, HVAC technicians would put the ductwork together. They felt, warm air or cold air coming out of the end as was designated, and they were done with their work. But a few things have happened. One is that when they initially put things together, it may not have been that tight. If we lose 10% of the air leaking out through seams and penetrations of the ductwork, still that's not bad. 90% in school is pretty good grade. So if 90% of the air goes through to where it needs to go, that doesn't seem so bad. But in fact, that's a lot of leakage. Could be dropping 10, 15, even 20% off of the efficiency of the overall system. If you think about it, it doesn't make sense to buy a 96% efficient gas furnace if you're going to drop 10% because your ductwork is leaking, and now you're down into the low 80s. We want to do much better than that. And sometimes the ductwork, that's aged and fallen apart over time is quite a bit worse than even that. And it's a good example picture on the lower left where, literally the ductwork, maybe an animal got in there, but literally sometimes we go and find things have fallen apart and become disconnected. And the picture on the right there shows the solution, and literally it's, if it's applying a latex sealant called duct mastic to the joints and sealing up those potential leakage points, and we can get the ductwork quite tight, pretty close to 100%, getting to where it's supposed to go. Next slide. There's been some very big changes in the industry that I'm really happy to see in the last really the last five years or so, where we're seeing the use of very high efficiency heat pumps. And this is an example right here, a hot water heater that is what we call a hybrid hot water heater. And basically it uses electricity, but it's a heat pump. And so what it's doing, you think about the normal philosophy of heating. We either combust a gas, we combust something, and we're looking to transfer the heat from that combustion into our water. And if we design it really, really well, we might get that to 95%, 95% of the The heat from that combustion is going into into our water, and that's pretty close to the theoretical limit. And if you have an older system, some of those older systems are 50%. Only 50% of the heat is getting transferred into the water. With a heat pump, it's a whole different philosophy. So rather than burning something in order to heat hot water, it's a heat pump. What it's doing is it's taking heat from its local environment, and it's putting, very much like an air conditioner pumps heat from inside your house to outside. The heat pump hot water heater is taking heat from its environment and putting that into the water and heating that up. So now that heat pump hot water heater, instead of having 100% efficiency, which we sort of thought of as our maximum before, now it's 350% efficient. So it's taking 1 unit of electricity and it's gathering 2.5 to 3 times as much additional heat from its environment and putting that in the water. And so now we can have much higher efficiencies than we ever imagined through this kind of magic of the heat pump. And that's one of the great updates that we've seen in the last 5 years of these heat pump hot water heaters. Really an amazing piece of technology, and they become quite mainstream. We're doing literally hundreds of these now a year, and I think this is going to become kind of the standard for most people pretty soon. Next slide. And then similar to the hot water heating is doing heating and air conditioning upgrades. And the picture there is of somebody who has a high efficiency mini split heat pump. And heat pumps come in different flavors. One of the most popular now are these mini splits. And one of the amazing things about them is that you get now individualized temperature control. So in my house anyway, there's always a battle between half the family was too hot and half the family was too cold, and in the end we picked a middle point, and no one was really happy with it, right? But now with mini splits, everyone is able to have their own select their own temperature where they're going to be comfortable. If we're not in a particular room for a while, we don't have to heat that room as warm or cool it as much. And again, these technologies, unlike the combustion appliance, where if we really did our design really well, we could get almost up to 100%, but never over, right? So a 96% condensing boiler is an amazing technology, right? It's reached the theoretical limit of what it can do. It's only 96% efficient. One of these heat pumps, and there's a few different kinds of heat pumps, but these are now 350, 400% efficient. Even on the coldest days of the winter, they're going to be 200, 250% efficient. They're going to take heat from the outside and bring it into your home in a much more efficient, cleaner way than we could by burning fossil fuels in the past. So very efficient heating, very efficient and customized cooling. And there's both mini split varieties and ducted varieties, and really amazing technology. And it has, the program's heavily supported. And this is again an example of something that's gone quite mainstream in just the past couple of years. Next slide. So there are some, as I mentioned before, there's some great programs. New York State, as Gordian had said early on, has very ambitious goal, climate objectives, and these have, not just reduce our fossil fuel, these reduce all kinds of different pollution that come from the burning of fossil fuel. And in order to facilitate and make this happen, New York State has provided, rebates, and they've pushed PSEG to offer, have very similar types of rebates. And they've also bundled these together. There's a full-on recognition. These are investments. Sometimes they're not insignificant investments. And so by partnering, by pairing up this this great technology and these sometimes basic stuff of caulking your house in the right places, we're able to couple that up with types of financing that are going to now low interest financing that's going to stretch those payments over a period of time that's going to make sense. So now you're able to realize the energy savings, and from that savings, pay for the upgrades that are going to make your home, more comfortable, healthier, and safer in the process. Next slide. So the process to get no cost home energy assessment, that's typically the first step. Then we'll, most contractors, us included, we would sit down with you, kind of go over, what are the recommendations, that, it may be as simple as, doing some insulation and air sealing up in your attic, maybe some spray foam in your rim joist area of your home that's in the basement, and that's going to help tighten up your home. Show you kind of the areas where your home could, use some improvement. You may have also shared with us that, certain rooms are uncomfortable and so maybe need a little bit of extra help to get, to make them more comfortable. Maybe there's some other, concerns, whether there's, could be asbestos. Sometimes there's a potential moisture issues. There's things like that we're able to deal with. We're also going to match you up with programs, and there's programs that, really for every economic status on Long Island. If you don't have money, there's programs there. If you have money, there's programs there. So it's really, you don't have to, sort of worry, oh, I can't afford this. This is something where, a contractor who's working in the programs is going to be aware of, what's out there for you that's going to match up between your home, your particular concerns, and then also, which programs are going to best be able to help you. And then, from there, we're able to map out a plan so that you can complete the upgrades to your home. And then at the end, we're going to retest your home to make sure that, we've seen improvements in the air leakage, that, maybe there was, if we haven't inadvertently caused a situation, maybe with existing combustion appliances. And the end result is save money, enjoy your home, healthier and more comfortable. Next slide. All right, there's my contact. I am again Jay Best. I'm the CEO of Green Team Long Island, greenteamli.com, and great way to get hooked up with us is also through the East Hampton website, which I'm sure Lauren is going to show us again.
All right. Wow. Thanks, Jay. That was a really great and really thorough explanation on the ins and outs of a home energy audit. So also joining us tonight is an East Hampton resident, Lena Tabori, who also happens to be the former chair of our Energy Sustainability Committee. She had an energy assessment done pretty recently on her home, and we've asked her to share her experience. So Lena, I'm going to promote you here to panelists so we can hear from you. Just take a second. And all right, if you want to just unmute yourself and begin whenever you're ready. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I find it fabulous that Jay was the speaker tonight. And of course, Green Homes is exactly the company that did my energy audit more than a year ago. I suspect that most people don't wake up in the morning and decide on a whim that they're going to order an electric car or install heat pumps to replace their existing gas-fueled HVAC. Something prompts them, often economics. Sometimes they've learned something about the environment or climate change, and that adds to their resolve. In my case, it was both. The system in the spring of 2020, my air conditioning system was failing. It was 17 years old, and apparently I had a leak, which my heating and cooling company couldn't locate. They did add refrigerant immediately, which allowed me to have air conditioning, but it seemed to be leaking again. So continually pumping in refrigerant was definitely not a solution, neither financially nor ethically. And the ethics did matter. I had sold my publishing company to Rizzoli just some years before, and I was 4 years into building a climate change website. I had tried and failed to do a lot of right things, to put solar on my house, but I had cedar shingles, and that was a downfall for me. I'd asked for and received free Nest thermostats from PSEG in exchange for giving them the right to control my heating and cooling temperature settings during peak moments. I bought a Tesla when my 2004 car began eating up too much money in repairs. That was the first new car I'd ever purchased, but I clearly had work to do in my house, and switching to LED bulbs was not enough for me. But I was spending way too much to heat and cool my house, and I was using too much gas, and I was leaking. What to do? Time for an energy audit. I went to Energize to search for who I should call. And lo and behold, I found Green Homes. And that was in early June last year. I moved fairly swiftly. By the middle of the month, I'd contacted them. They'd responded to say that Green Team Long Island would contact me to arrange for the audit. Green Team was at my house in no time. And by early July, the audit was complete. I had a project review in my inbox, complete with an energy savings projection over 25 years, including the discounts and rebates that I could take advantage of, and the costs that I would incur after the rebates. So based upon their receiving an SA deposit from me and my getting, and they evaluated also the balance that I could therefore get a loan from the state to be repaid within 15 years, which that was brilliant, actually. And it was an extraordinary low interest rate as well. The recommendations that they gave me included weatherization that was primarily in the attic. That included duct leakage. And also, apparently I was losing some energy through the hi-hats from the ceilings below. They put in a new heat pump system, heating and cooling. They put in a new hybrid heat pump, just as Jay had talked about earlier. And they upgraded my Nest thermometers. The Nest thermometers that I had 5 wires, and apparently I needed 6 in order to utilize all the new systems that they put in for me. And then they handled all my paperwork. I'm not sure what I was happiest about, frankly. Obviously, everything that caused my house to work silently and brilliantly from that moment forward, at least until now. But the fact that they took care of all the paperwork for both the rebates and the loans, I have to say was high on my list of things that I was really happy about. Within 10 days of my getting that report, all the questions that I had been answered. The warranties and maintenance agreements, I was concerned about maintenance agreements because I didn't know who locally could handle whatever problems came up, if any problems did come up. And all my papers were signed. The heat pumps were installed on the 10th and 11th of August. So that was about 6 weeks after I had first contacted them to get the energy audit. They had a brilliant subcontractor called Certified Cooling and Heating that did that work. They put in these 2 spectacular Bosch heat pumps.
That's great. Lena, I'm sorry to have to interrupt. We have just 4 minutes left, and we got a lot of questions. But thank you for this great testimonial.
Yeah, I'm pretty.
Thank you, Lena. You've been very kind.
So let's go to some questions for Jay. We got quite a few questions here. Some of them you've already answered, but one question is, what are the next steps after the audit? Am I required to proceed with the recommendations immediately?
No, not at all. The purpose of the energy audit is really educational. It's to let homeowners know about what's there and the issues with their home, how those can be rectified. And we have many homeowners who, you know, are want to do it themselves. They've got, you know, a friend and, you know, who's able to help them out with it, and absolutely encourage that, you know. So there's a lot that you may be able to do yourself, and there's some things that, you know, people may want to have professionals take care of.
Right.
So, but there's also no obligation to do anything. You know, it's you're in the driver's seat.
And how will a contractor help me, or yeah, if it was you, how will you help the customer to access financial help to make the home energy improvements?
So there, one of the products been mentioned a couple of times. New York State has these low interest energy efficiency loans through some legislation that was passed a number of years ago called Green Jobs, Green New York. And we're essentially the conduit for that. You know, we help you with the paperwork required to get that done, the approvals. So, you know, as Lena mentioned, we try to bring it down to, you know, we take care of all of the kind of messy details so that, you know, you can just worry about, you know, what is going to make sense for you.
Great. And another question was, do I need to find another contractor to complete the recommended home efficiency improvements, or is that the auditor?
So our intention is to be sort of a one-stop shop. So, you know, most of the time, and little backstory, I know we're running short of time. I got into this as an energy auditor coming up with recommendations. And then I got into the contracting end of it because people kept asking me, well, Jay, who should I use? Can I use you? And so, you know, then we got more into the contracting end of things. So, but again, there's no obligation to use us. You know, these are recommendations. You can do whatever you want with them. You know, we hope that it'll help to spur you to move forward. If you do with us, you know, there's going to be pricing and potential financing. That's all, you know, we kind of spell out for you.
Okay, I got one more, and then we got to move on. Somebody says, I've been pursuing replacing my 30-year-old home heating, oil, HVAC, and HVAC for the past 2 years, and have been researching the type of system that would be most ecological but cost-effective to heat and cool. What would you recommend?
So oil systems tend to be great candidates for swapping out for, you know, for these air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps, depending on the situation. These heat pumps, you know, as I mentioned, are, you know, 3 or 4 times more efficient than your oil system. They're going to be much cleaner, and then, as you know, certainly much cleaner in your home. You also usually get some space back in your basement. You know, there's an oil boiler, no longer, you know, an oil hot water tank. We don't need an oil tank anymore. So, you know, there's some real local environmental benefits in your home. Don't have to worry about groundwater pollution, and oil is really at a very high price right now. And so you're going to save money in the process.
Great. Thanks so much. Back to Lauren.
All right, great. Thank you. Yeah, it looks like we are out of time. Wow, that flew by. So if you are interested in scheduling your free home energy assessment, like we mentioned, you can visit energizeh.org, select it from the menu on the homepage, and you scroll to the bottom and you select the link that says request a free home energy assessment. That'll bring you to our info sheet here. And you can select your interest in either financing for home energy efficiency improvements or free home energy assessment, or both. And your info will be forwarded to the Long Island Green Homes Program, and you will be contacted to schedule an energy assessment that's free. So what do you have to lose? That, I think, is time. Thank you all so much for
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. That was a really great presentation. We're going to have, like I said, a recording of the webinar on energizeh.org. We'll have the slides, and we're going to type up the Q&A, especially the questions we didn't get to with answers, and all of that will be posted shortly on energizeh.org. Again, thank you all so much, and hope to see your sign up for your free energy audit soon. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.